middle of a lot of the events. One of them we were talking about was the Mayan calendar and the WebBot. Well, two of them in the WebBot report. Now, none of the Mayan calendars and the interpretations of them are saying anything about everything coming to an end this November, but there is something in all this that does have a major milestone event scheduled for this November, which I think really is important, and that's where I think maybe, when you're trying to convey a lot of information, that's probably the very first thing that we probably ought to take a look at so that people can start focusing and preparing, because it should help us motivate more than anything. It's to help us see what the potential is, what the opportunity is to fix or prepare for it. So that's where we're at. Well, I can start with the fact that, the WebBot report was the one I'm talking about was last August, August 15th, actually. And there's a couple things in there that really is important to know. And one of the main things, and I know you all know this, was a time frame in November of November 8th through the 11th. It was a literal 4-day. Actually, it was a 4-day period, and it was 4 days, 6 hours long, according to the WebBot report, and the data that came across of something that was going to actually, it showed up on this graph that shows there's some big kind of transition event. Well, they call it release. Now, that doesn't mean that things get better, and it's probably just the beginning of the problem. So how does that compare to the calendar, say the Mayan calendar, which was around before our country, Well, here's what it really amounts to, is that the Mayan calendar is divided up into several. The Mayan calendar has been figured out from a lot of different things. We've got 2 actual different calendars, the long count calendar and so forth, the divine calendar. But the steps on the step pyramids were representing to the Mayans different periods of time. And there's the top layer, the last one, and it's about ready to occur. And that's called the 7th. That's called the last one, the last period of time. It's only going to be 260 days long. The one that was right before it is the one we're in. It's only a year and 1 month long. So how long was the one before that? Well, the one before the one we're in was 244 years long prior to this, what's called now the 6th night. So you can see, and if you go down in this calendar, this schedule they've got for the Mayan calendar, each one of these periods is, 244 years is a long time. Well, they get extremely long as you go down. But the one we're in now is only going to last, the period that we're in, the 6th night, will start the last day of this period that we're in, and the last period in this, or last part of the week they divided up into weeks, by the way, or days of the week, I should say. And the last day in the period that we're in will start November this year. So we're going to be going, I probably confused everybody, but we're going to be going from the 6th night to the 7th day. There is no night, there's no 7th night, because when it ends, when the 7th night or the 7th day ends, we start a 260-day period. That's the last period on the Mayan calendar. And that's why everybody's saying that period of time, the calendar's end. It's over. It's done. Because each one of these epic periods were built on top of the others, and actually physically were built on top of each other on a pyramid. And it was a history from the time of, say, the Big Bang, or what you might call the existence of nothing into the universe. Well, what's that mean? That's what's important, you know.
Well, Doc, let me. I don't want to go off topic, but I just let me segue to a little story here, real quick, before we go anywhere further, because I think this could be a little bit important here. And Griff, this is a New York Times article that just came out on the 29th. My wife just relayed it to me, and when I saw the title, I was like, what? And it says, in a computer worm, a possible biblical clue. And it's talking about that worm that's going through, the stucknet worm that's going through Iran right now. And it says, deep inside the computer worm that some specialists suspect is aimed at slowing Iran's race for a nuclear weapon lies what could be a fleeting reference to the Book of Esther, the Old Testament tale in which the Jews preempt a Persian plot to destroy them. Very interesting that, and guys, we put the link to the article in the chat, and I won't read the whole thing, but isn't that interesting that it could offer some sort of clue that could be in the plans? What do you think about that, Griff and Doc?
I read the article. I didn't go back to study it, but I did read it one time hurriedly, and I found it interesting. I have no idea what it means, but it was interesting to read it.
Right. But isn't it interesting, Doc, that here we are talking about, entering, the seventh day, and the November time frame is about when that happens, and we're seeing ourselves really at the precipice here of some major change. So I mean, it really does validate exactly what you're saying.
Well, it is rather ominous, and I'll tell you why that information is. Jumping ahead a little bit in some of this info tonight, the and going back to the WebBot, it talks about this 4-day period in November, and now this 4-day, I'm going to bracket this for you. There's a 4-day period on the WebBot report that talks about all kinds of stuff. At this point, being a peak of November 8th through the 11th, the 4th day being the 11th. And then the 4th day, the WebBot report says that there were some events that are going to occur as a result of the elections. The elections are going to be thought of as being stolen. Somehow or other, the mass media is going to start a psyop to make people believe that it was stolen by Jewish interests, which then causes a backlash against the Jewish people, and they're supposed to then have a reason to launch a war on Iran to protect the Jewish people. So we have this psyop of anti-Semitism planted as an excuse to launch this war, and here you're talking about Esther and this the war of with Israel, fighting Israel Israel. Right. And so it's right there in the WebBot report, and it's this November. So that's interesting.
And it is interesting. And a guy by the name of Dave over on YouTube, he's also talking about how the feds have lost control of the market. John Paulson, the owner of Wall Street's largest hedge fund, is betting on $4,000 gold. I mean, that's crazy. Of course, 4,000 what, Griff? How can?
Well, I was going to correct you when you said that. It was 4,000 what?
But it all comes down to this, really, Doc. And I'm going to bring. We have a caller. Andrew's on the line, and I want to bring him on. It all comes down to this, really, in the end. Even if it's aliens, if it's nuke, if it's the financial market, if it's all of the above, what do you guys think it really comes down to in the end?
Self and family.
Self and family.
Always.
You weren't so quick on the draw tonight, there, Griff. I thought you were going to be right there.
Well, I'm trying to compensate for the lag in speaking over this primitive communication. I think the majority of the people are not equipped to handle most of what we talk about, and I think it turns into clutter. I think it handicaps the people and distracts them off of what they should be on, and that's preserving self and family.
Yes, sir. Hey, Andrew, how you doing, buddy?
It's entertainment, in other words.
How's it going?
I'm good, man. Just enjoying the show.
Oh, that's great.
You're caught up everything.
Yeah, you're free to chime in because I know you had some stuff to say to Dr. Waterman or whatever you want to say. Now's your chance.
Hey, since you're on the topic, or asking what's it going to be, I'd have to say we're going to get an all of the above. Coming soon. So I would like to ask, so you were saying Dr. Deagle is stating we're looking at an October and November timeline, huh? Pretty specifically.
Yeah, and it's funny, because we've got Deagle pretty much saying the same thing, although he's got a different variation or a different flavor about how he goes about explaining it than say Dr. Waterman or Griff, but everybody seems to be in line with this time frame, and that speaks volumes because again, no matter what happens, it really does come down to self and family. It really does come down to preparing yourself for the, I can't say uncertain times ahead, because the more that I hear about it and the closer that we get, the more certain I am something's going to happen. Do I know what's going to happen? No. Do I know exactly what's going to happen or when it's going to happen? No. But I can say for a certainty that there are things that are going to take place and that it's in the best interest of everybody out there to prepare themselves as best as possible. Now, does that mean that you're not going to be vaporized?
No.
Joe,
you'll love this one, man. Speaking of,
go ahead.
I was just listening to a recast of the John Moore show from Sunday, and a caller called in from Texas and said he has seen this new star right on the southern horizon that is 4 times brighter than the North Star. Said he's never seen anything like it in his life. I got to think, well, hell, this might all just kind of come down in one nice, neat package.
Now, my wife just put something in the chat room and said, she says, I'm going to go out on a limb and play devil's advocate here and say that because there's so much focus on November, that she believes that whatever happens will be quiet and behind the scenes. What do you guys think?
No, I don't think so. I think it'll be out in front.
Kind of like a disinfo thing, kind of like we'll put it out there to get them focused on this, and then we're going to quietly ramrod them when they're not looking.
I think the managers of the world are losing control. I think they will lose control and not be able to follow through.
No, I agree. I mean, we definitely see the signs of that. And his YouTube ID is David's 11131113. He puts out some good videos, and folks, if you don't subscribe to him, please do, because he puts out some very good information about this stuff. And he's been right on track, keeping track of these guys, and it's all coming down to the next couple of months. I don't think they have many cards left to play. Matter of fact, I think their hand sucks at this point, don't you think?
What, Joe? Something interesting I was thinking of the other day is, like, people are waiting for markers and timelines from whatever they believe. And I know one thing that I've heard before is nobody's made me take the mark of the beast yet. And I had to think about it. I was like, well, nobody's made anyone do it yet, but thousands, if not millions of people have already taken that, already have it in their right hand, between the thumb and forefinger. I had to think about it. Like, man, we've definitely made some milestones in this time.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to add another phone call. I think this is Brian from South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. 803, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm right here. I'm enjoying the show tonight, and I heard you guys talking, and I heard you talking about $4,000 gold. This was brought up earlier this week on the Alex Jones show, and of course Alex and I believe it was Bob Chapman. They were pounding gold really, really hard, but what good is, if everything goes bad, boy, I've got a couple ounces of gold that's worth $4,000 a piece. What good's that going to do you? I mean,
you're right, Brian. You're right, and Griff said it best. 4,000 what? Really, you know,
right.
if things go down to what's 4,000 of what? What's that going to do? Is that going to feed your family? Is that going to get you water? Is that going to get